Can you hear me?
Hi, Gary. Yeah, I had to unmute you.
Oh, okay, perfect. Yeah, I hope the internet's good, man. We try to do something, and yeah, like you said, let's hope that it's good because it's giving a good enough signal.
Yeah,
But hey, the freezing, I don't know why or how.
we'll see. And otherwise, just reconnect. And if it takes too long, send me a text message, and I will let everybody know.
Yeah, yeah.
And if it doesn't
Okay.
work, it doesn't work.
Yeah, yeah, but it's a bummer, man.
It would be, yeah. But I think you did the speed test. It looked perfectly. So
Yeah, the speed test was good, and so I have I have no understanding why it does it.
yeah. So we have about 42 subscribers.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah, perfect.
yeah, pretty good. Last
Are,
time
are
we
they? Are they?
sorry.
And no. Are they mainly Netherlands, or is it from all over?
I'm gonna have to check that. I'm not sure if I can check. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not that important. I was just wondering,
So just quickly scrolling through, I see lots of Dutchies.
Yeah.
I see Ron Miasknikov. You know him, the judge? Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay.
I see Chichi.
Yeah.
Some and a few non-Dutchies, but like a
Okay.
handful.
Okay.
But mostly Dutch.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. And you said I had to open like the double balloon, the one that gives me the public chat and presenter chat.
Yeah, and
So
then like click on the presenter chat.
yeah. Okay. Perfect.
Yeah, and I'll inform you through that one. Let me grab the questions from last time just to be sure. Yeah, here. Got any funny stories? Any jokes you want to tell? Fill the time.
I'm not good. My jokes are not good. They come from South Africa, so they don't always go down well.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, otherwise, how are you guys doing with Corona? I mean, you personally, how's the whole thing? How's it treating you?
Yeah, so my wife and I are both in the military. We have a son of like year and a half.
Yeah.
So the first time, the first part of the corona, he was not allowed to go to the daycare, but we
Yeah.
were both able to work from home.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was, how do you say, challenging to have like a boy year and a half and do the video teleconferences like
Yeah.
with some high level officer, and you have the little boy screaming at your side.
Yeah.
But after a while, the daycare opened again, and I still work a lot from home. But
Right.
yeah, mostly, yeah, I think like 50-60% I work from home, and the rest I have to go to the base for
Yeah.
meetings and stuff like that.
And
But it's
where's your base?
pretty okay.
Where's the base?
It's Vught, close to Den Bosch in the south
Yeah.
of the
Okay.
Netherlands.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's an engineer training center.
Right. Okay.
And how about yourself? Do you still like live half year here and half year abroad?
No, on Texel. Right. So I mean,
Full time.
I spend most of I do spend a lot of training camps in Florida,
Mm-hmm.
mainly with Qatar. A little bit of Hayabusa. Have started to go back to the USA, to the East Coast, to Florida. But obviously with Corona, I was there in March when the Corona lockdown came. So
Oh wow.
and Hayabusa had just left, maybe 2 weeks before that. But Qatar was there for 1 month, and after 2 weeks, we had to stop, cancel, fly home. It was
Ooh,
crazy.
yeah.
But
Wow.
since then, obviously, as a freelancer, it's difficult. You're not working, especially in skydiving. You're going to come as a coach. You come back last because restaurants will open, horeca, everything opens,
Yeah.
and people go back. But as soon as they see a spike, then they're going to stop international travel, and then you have to look where you travel to. So, I mean, I've been with Hayabusa. We've done 2 camps already now since the whole Corona startup, and Qatar, I fear that their plan is to open in September, 1st of September. That then they have fully phased out Corona and they can travel. But where do they travel to? They're not going to travel to Portugal or Spain or.
No.
So where do you go? That's going to be the big question, I think.
Yeah.
So I'm a little bit worried for them, and obviously for me, that's a big load of work for me. But I must be honest, they've been good. It's military, and they've managed to pay me some of my salary. So they'll probably, they don't pay a full salary, which I don't expect, but they do. It keeps me alive.
Oh, wow.
So I'm not in panic at all. But obviously, it's also you want to get out and work.
Yeah.
And I'm watching the drop zone here, and they're pounding out tandems, man. It's been incredible, insane how busy it is here. Unbelievable. They are doing on a weekday. They will do 90 to 100 tandems,
That's
and
insane.
it's nonstop. I go, don't the people, where is it? Is it there's more money now, and I don't know why. Is it because people aren't going to Portugal, Spain? And they come into Texel as to stay inside Nederland, or a lot of Germans are going, wow, Texel's safe, we'll go there. But it's packed. Every hotel owner that you speak to says they've never had it so full. It's booked until September, October. Every bed,
Yeah, we have a skill camp with our free fly team in, I think, late August. And we are already warning people like, hey, be fast to book some accommodation because there won't be any left.
Yeah, I can imagine. But what skills camp is it? Is that for a basic level or no?
Well, actually, it's for all level. We have the free fly team. Probably know Tom van der Waal and Daan van Keulen.
Yes.
Yeah, so the 3 of us is a free fly team.
Right.
And I think, but I'm not sure, that we might have Ephraim and Rachel.
Yeah.
Joining us, but I'm not really sure. So we have all levels. The idea is for each of us to jump with a group of 3 to 5 or 6 people, depending on the level. So we should be able to shift people into the right group,
Yeah, great. Yeah, because my son's a trainee on the drop zone, and he's very much into free flying, and he likes it. But he's only got 80 jumps. But I said to him, he needs to find a basic free flyer skills camp,
Yeah.
and sign up to something like that.
Yeah.
Because
it's a little bit. Well, it doesn't say everything, but it really depends on what he's doing. Like, in my honest opinion, most trainees do a lot of how do you say, like the non-planned jumps.
Yes, for sure. He's in that.
Like 80 jumps is probably not as much as somebody who dedicates and goes to a drop zone to do free fly jump.
I agree, no doubt. But it would just be more or less for him. As I think they used to have it on Texel, where they had the start-up boogie, or the what do they call it, like the kickstart boogie. And I said, hey, that would be perfect for him. But obviously with Corona, there was none. But I said, hey, that's next year. He's got to jump all over that kickstart boogie, register and stand there early morning and start jumping.
So I'm keeping an eye on the viewers. We have 0 viewers at the moment, which is kind of surprising, because the last time, 5 minutes before the start, people were showing up. But hopefully they will do in the meantime. Let me.
I wasn't even watching the time.
Check if there's something on Facebook. I like it.
There's one.
Oh, yeah, there's one. Hoi, Rick. And Manuel. And Soph.
Yeah.
Cool. So I was just like literally before you guys joined us, I was like, oh, well, it's 5 minutes to start, and we didn't have any viewers yet. So I was like, oh, is something maybe going wrong? But oh, I see Ron has joined us as well. Hello, Ron. Nice of you to join. So yeah, we were just having a little chat to fill the time for the remaining 4 minutes.
So maybe Thursday traffic in the center of Nederland.
Well, it should be good. I had a course of well, something for work in Amersfoort, and I used to work there from Den Bosch, and that's like the A2. It's like early morning and in the afternoon. The traffic jams are horrible. It's normally a 45-minute drive, and the last couple of days it took me like 50 minutes or something. Well, back in the day when I worked there, it was like hour and a half.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's the good thing of living on Texel, eh? You don't even worry about traffic jams. Although with tourists, things go slower, but there's no such thing as traffic jam. So it always catches me when I go on a training camp somewhere, no matter where, be it Germany or Belgium. When you sit in traffic, then you always go, man, how lucky you are on Texel. You never have to deal with sitting for hours in a car, man, or extra in a car.
Well, I did have a farmer vehicle in front of me for like the road on Texel. That was kind of annoying.
Yeah. I mean, but if you live here, you get used to it. And they seem to pull out at the worst times. You know, they pull out in the peak traffic time, whenever there's a boat letting off all the cars and whatever. The farmers come out on their tractors, and they seem to go as slow as they can.
Yeah.
I think it's a bit of a tactic of theirs.
Yeah, they want to keep you on the island, I guess. I see Mechi joined us as well. Probably Don is there too. See a hi from Edwin. Hi, Edwin. Oh, there's a wave here.
I'm glad you're controlling the things, because I would have no idea what I'm doing with the technology side of this whole thing.
Well, I had the webinar with Will Penny to practice 2 weeks ago. So
yeah, but it's your forte. You're good with computers and stuff.
I know how to work it. The computer mostly. Yeah.
I do the basics, the emails and the WhatsApps on the telephone, and that's it. You know. But where was Will? Was Will in Empuria?
Yeah, he just got back from Empuria. The day before, he was when we did the dry run with Will. He was still up somewhere in the mountains, but he had a good connection.
Okay.
And he was back in Empuria. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, we have about 2 minutes to go. We'll just wait for some people to join us. I see Paul has joined us as well. Hello, Paul. Welcome.
It's been super good weather here, man, on Texel.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, here in the south was also pretty good today. I mean, it was a little bit cloudy, but mostly sunny. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they had clouds here as well, but I mean, jumpable. It's jump. You know, they could jump. There's been, I think, almost every day that they've been jumping, barring maybe 1 or 2 days in July. But I mean, the freelancers here are I'm sure, pretty happy because they're jumping so much, but tired, man. You know, when you're doing 19, 20, 21 jumps a day, it's unbelievable, man.
It makes up for the time lost.
For sure, but you get tired, eh? And when you get tired, you can get irritated and irritable, and
yeah. Right, so it's 19:30. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Today we have Gary Smith, and I will switch to your camera in a second. As our last speaker, Will Penny, 2 weeks ago, Gary originates from South Africa. did a lot of FS4. I lost the number of teams you were in yourself, but also the amount of teams that you coached. Like you just, like before we started, you were talking to me like some teams, and I was like, wow, that is a lot and super high level. So thank you, Gary, for joining us today. And I will switch to you right now. The floor is yours.
Thanks, Benny. And obviously, thanks to you and the Sports Commission for making this all possible. And obviously, I hope to everybody out there that it's interesting. The topic of how to plan or structure your training, it comes across, if you're a coach, you get this question very often during the year. You get contacted by teams or individuals, people that you don't even coach, and they'll send you a WhatsApp. Nowadays is probably more often or more common, or an email where they'll be going, how can we, on a technical way, how can we speed up our jumps? How do we get faster? How do we improve our skills? But not only that, I go more into the logistical side and the admin planning of your training. I think is very, very important. And we often get, as coaches, you often get the questions from people saying, how many jumps should we be doing in a day? Or if we do a weekend's training, should it just be 1 day or 2 days? And then, of course, if you're a semi-pro team and you're going to go away on a training camp or to a drop zone and you're going to spend a whole week, how many days should you be on or off? And I think the answers are sometimes very simple, but I think very important that you plan it and you understand, where you should go with that. And I'll get to that. I'll tackle each one, but because this topic is so broad, I want to try and keep it kind of in little structures. And if I then go on to, you also get questions of packing. Should we be using packers? Should we do back-to-backs? What's the benefit? Should we be using coaching? Should we have a coach full-time, or do we use a coach online, as some teams like to do? What about drop zones? Where do we train? Do we stay in the Northern Hemisphere? Do we stay in Northern Europe, or do you go south, or do you go to the USA? So that to me is a very big question. And then what started to come more and more into the skydiving, as it is, or parachuting, is the tunnel. How much of our budget or training should we allocate into tunnel? How much tunnel should be allocated into our training program? And I wanted to add on, depending how time goes, I just added in a little section here right at the end of fitness, because I think that's also super important. But if we get to it, I have a little topic here, just a little bit on fitness, which I think also very, very important. But as a coach, when you get asked this, no matter what the questions, which one of these come at you, for me, the only way I can answer it is to ask the team, what are your goals? Have you set goals as a team? Have you sat down? And the goals can be, no matter what they are, no matter what level of team, you have to sit down and you have to have some form of goals, because otherwise you cannot measure your success. You cannot even rate your progression. Are you progressing if you don't have a goal? And if I can give a simple example that I often use to teams is, if I woke up every morning and I went to work and I was building motor cars, and I built 10 motor cars, and I thought, wow, that's good. I'd come home and I'd be happy with myself, and the next day I go back to work and I don't change anything. I built 10 motor cars again. But then one day I go to work and the boss looks at me and he says, but the goal is to build 100 motor cars a day. Then I go, well, I've been totally missing the whole thing. I should be working harder to try and make that. And then I go and I sit down with the boss and I say, you know what? I come to work every day and I work as hard as I can, and there's no ways I can make 100 cars. I'm making 10 and that's it. And what the boss then's got to do, he's got to then say, maybe we need to change that goal. We need to be more realistic and say, we either need to add 5 more Garys to make 50 cars, or 4 more. Let's put 5 Garys in there. So if I'm a team, I need to make, if I want to become world champions and I can only do 100 jumps, I might say you need to make 500 jumps. So you need to add more workforce, and then you've got to be a little bit more realistic and say, maybe we can't make 100 cars a day. And as a coach, I'd have to say to the team, maybe you can't be world champions with only 100 jumps. You know, so to me, it's so important to set goals as a team, and even individuals inside the team. It's important for me, especially if I don't know the team. If I get a team contacting me and I don't know them, I'd like to know the individuals in the team. What are their goals? Because, for example, if two of them say they want to become world champions and the other two say they just want to have fun, then I'd go, well, this is going to be a tricky scenario here. You know, we could make it work for a year, but eventually this team's not going to continue, because there's two guys that are way more driven than two others. And it doesn't mean there's a right and a wrong. I think skydiving should be fun in any sport. There's soccer players, there's marathon runners, that they don't start up a marathon to win it. You run it for different reasons. So the same with team sports. Make sure that you sit with your individuals and you each understand what each other wants, because it also helps to, down the road, when you have a little bit of irritation and we're tired and we're fatigued, we can then understand why Gary is pushing so hard as a member and why he wants to make 15 jumps, or why little Gary doesn't want to do that, because they just want to have fun. So it's important, if you understand it. I also think it helps the team dynamics a little bit. And then lastly, with the goals, with the questions, budget is a big thing. I think many people contact and say, well, what happens if, you know, how do we save money here or save there? So a budget plays a big part into planning for a team. If a team comes to me, like I work with the Qatar military, Belgium military, the Belgian military is a little bit limited on their budget, where Qatar, I would like to say, is almost unlimited. So if things work out, I do have the possibility of hiring in a second coach. I can say we can go to the tunnel and I can hire Hayabusa to fly with Team Qatar. It hasn't happened, but budget-wise, it could happen. It's just a case of making sure I can get Hayabusa to do it. So to plan everything with that, it's important to know what budgets, what constraints you're working inside. So for me to go back to where we started with jumps per day, it's a simple one. I'm going to try and keep it a little bit shorter than I had planned. But if you go to the drop zone and you're only going to train for 1 day, I can arrive very early in the morning. I would have my energy drinks ready. I'd have my snacks, my nutrition, and I could make 15 jumps a day for you. And I would, or on that day, because I know that's all I'm doing. My focus would be 100%. The telephone would be switched off. I can live in that day and I can give you 100%. So there's the advantage of doing 1 day training. If we had to do 2 days, I could probably arrive the next day as well and do the same, but probably think, well, maybe 12 to 13 jumps today. I don't really want to do 15. I'm a little bit muscle sore, but it's still a good day and you make a full 12 jumps, fully focused. But if it comes to 3 or 4 days after that and you still jumping, you probably find that the energy drink's not working that well. The nutrition's a little bit out. You need to replace the nutrition. And you don't have that focus to get back, that drive to get back into the plane and learn anymore. So the answer of one jump in a 1 day in a weekend works on the focus side, I think, and energy. On the negative of only doing 1 day, you end up going, what you've just learned, it's good to put into practice the next day. And if you have to wait another week or 2 weeks before you jump again, sometimes that exit that you just think you've got right, or that move in free fall where you can reach a grip and you can put an input with your knee and pull something, you don't get to practice that again. So for me, I would be going with on a weekend side of it. I would be definitely going jump a full weekend, jump 2 days. 1 day a weekend is probably not enough for a team. Try and make it at least a full weekend. And if you have the luxury of jumping long weekends, great. If you jump in long full training camps, you have to measure fatigue, and this is where your coaches will come into it, and they will be saying to you, you know what, the performance is going down. We were jumping great on day 1 and 2. I could see smiles. Everyone was happy. And we're starting to see a little bit of tiredness. I'm looking at dead eyes, you know, and you have this smile where somebody's smiling, but they're not really smiling. They're kind of hoping that somebody's going to call the day and say that's enough. So then I would be going, we should probably be taking the next day off. So, but generally that happens after 4 days of hard jumping. To another small example that I have that I often give to teams when they're planning their jump numbers, and a simple example that you can put into any team and into any jump numbers, if you want to make 100 jumps in a season as a team, you sit down and you've done your goals and you've checked your budget and you say, we can do 100 jumps. Then you have to work out how many days is it going to take you to do 100 jumps. And if teams say to me they can make 10 to 12 jumps per day, I always take the lower number, take only 10 jumps per day. And you divide that into 100, easy calculation, and you come out on 10 days. So you're going to train for 10 days to make your 100 jumps. But we all know in our sport, we have a lot of variables that could come in. We could have weather, we could have somebody sick in the team, sinus problems. So the number that we always worked on, and that's kind of worked on all drop zones, whether it's been on Puria Bravo, whether it's even been on Texel up north, whether it's been in the USA, add 20% to your days. So if you have 10 days, add 20%, that's 2 days. So it's going to take you 12 days on average to make your 100 jumps. And then a team would say to me, just to add on to here, a team would say to me, you know what, we can only do 6 to 8 jumps a day because 2 of the guys or girls, they pack for themselves. So we think we can make 6 to 8 jumps. And I think, well, that's fine. It's still fun for them. But if you calculate it, that 100 jumps divided by 6, because that's the bottom line, the figure that they can make, it's going to take them 16 days, 16.5 days to make the 100 jumps. You add your 20% because of rain, pilots can't fly, drop zones are too busy, all the variables, you're up to close to 20 days, 19.8 days. And the difference between the two is going to be almost 7 to 8 days to make the same jumps. And I think the cost, for example, of packing, and I'm going to jump straight in from here into packing, if you pay a packer that you can make 10 jumps a day instead of 6 to 8 jumps a day, the packer's paid for right there. Because as much as we love to hang around on drop zones, we all know that the loss of income, the fact that you spend more family time, makes up for paying your pack jobs. So I think for me, packing, if I go straight onto that to a team, it's a no-brainer. Pay for the pack jobs because it pays back itself. We all know if you're only making 100 jumps, it's 7. If you're going to make 200, 300, 400 jumps, you multiply everything by 4 or 4.5 if you want 450, and all of a sudden your extra days that you're spending on the drop zone are a lot more. So to leave that one there, I'm going to go, that's just a little formula that we use kind of in the coaching circle to work it out. And on the side of it, the packers, to me, there's no negatives. I had written down the only negative to packing is the cost, but the cost, it pays for itself. So let's leave it right there. To move on, coaching. Again, negative. What is the negative of coaching? The cost. It costs you money for the coach. And I'm not going to say it pays itself back. That one you have to work yourself out, because nowadays coaching has become extremely expensive. The other negative, and it's a small one, it's sometimes a tough point to raise, sometimes the coach does not fit your team. And if I can give a small example of it, and I'm not going to use names on it, if you have a coach that's also driven and he chooses and he favors certain personalities in the team, personalities that, let's take it, that are, I'm not going to go with the strong personalities, the drivers, the personalities that are partying in the bar at night, that are coming to the drop zone and they only want to make 6 jumps and have a good time. If the coach favors them and forgets about the driven side of it, it's going to start to create friction in the team. And it's a case of the coach, instead of helping the team spirit, is actually helping the wedge that's actually driving this team apart. So it does happen. I've seen it happen before. And I don't want to say numerous times, but it does happen. And it's a point that I want to say to all the teams out there. We don't often say that as coaches, is remember, you are the employer and we as coaches are the employee. You pay us, you employ us. So you should fire us as well. So if you feel that, man, this is not working out, then it's a case of sit down with the coach and say, you know what, this is what we find the problem. As a CEO of a business would be doing with you, or the boss, he would sit down with the CEO and he'd say to the coach, listen, it's not working out. We go in different directions. And unless the coach thinks, yes, I agree, I can change, and that stays on, you can keep going down that path, or you need to find another coach. Yeah. So for me, that's the negative of coaching. The positives, I think, obviously, as being a coach myself, you always want to try and lead up to these things. You want to keep the positives there. We want to stay employed. But the coach, if I have to coach a team, I see myself as becoming a CEO of that team. Although they are still the bosses, they are the directors, I'm the CEO. I get on board and I lead the day. So all you have to do on the drop zone is you would arrive on the drop zone, and the coach is going to take you not only through the technical part, he's going to tell you what phase of training you're in. You're doing exits today, you're doing speed phase, you're doing B slots. He's going to run your whole technical side. And obviously, also important, depending on the team, there should also be mental training. There should also be a mental aspect, but that's the coach's responsibility. I've discussed the team spirit. I think one of the major factors, and if I go outside the sport, let's look at football, for example. If we take the team of Barcelona, which we are all Barcelona, if you're soccer fans, you all know who Barcelona is. And then you look at a team like Liverpool that's coached by Jurgen Klopp, the German coach. And if you can see how different those teams react on the field, you can see that there's an incredibly different team spirit. And for me, I attribute it all to the coach. Jurgen Klopp is a coach, is a people's coach. He gets in there, he hugs his players, he motivates the players. And I think that, to me, is the most important part of coaching in our sport, especially at a high level, but it also works on the bottom, because everybody, even if we all know from kids at school, we don't all learn at the same time. And if you have certain people that can learn how to do a center turn, I don't think our sport's that difficult that it's unachievable for others. They might just take a little bit longer. And it's important for the coach to make sure that that person stays confident and does not lose his confidence. You need to build the confidence in everybody. And if you can get everybody working together, happy team spirit, and the team learns more, and they will achieve more. And my final thing on the coaching, is I'd go, just as I said, the coach should be your CEO. He has to take responsibility for your performance. So if I'm coaching a team and they're sitting at a world meet or an NKP, a nationals, I shouldn't be only sitting when they up jumping, sitting in the corner drinking a coffee, saying, well, I've done my job, it's up to them. I don't work with that. I don't buy into that school. I almost go into, it's my job that I take responsibility for their performance, that I go, we've done as much as we can, and of course I have full confidence that they're going to do their job and go and give their best performance. We all know that nothing is guaranteed, and you can have a bad jump, but there's 10 jumps. And if you can work on that principle, you can always, as a coach, pick a team back up and say, hey, we've just started, it's not going that great, but we can turn this ship around, as we call it, and let's see if we can get some more positive results. Okay, Benny, I'm going to keep going here.
Would you mind answering a few questions about the topics that you just talked about, or do you want to wait until the end?
No, we're happy to do now.
All right, so I put them in the presenter chat, so you can also read with them. Edwin asked a couple of questions. I think the first two that he asked are very similar. How to motivate a team if some team members are unmotivated, and how do you keep all team members motivated throughout the year?
Well, like I say, Edwin, it's one of those that it's a coach's, that's your job as a coach. And I think you need to make the team members all believe in the goal. And if you believe in the goal, that if you can make the 100 motor cars or whatever, if you believe that you can do that, even if you're coming up a little bit short, you'll still be pushing for it. And every day is different. And for me as a coach, depending on the level of the team, there's certain phases of training. So instead of just coming to the drop zone and just making a jump and just jumping, and let's say they want to make 100 jumps, as the example I use, they're just going to make 100 jumps. We're going to put them on a board and they're going to jump. I like to change it up. And even halfway through the day, I'd say, okay, instead of going to 12,000, or let's say we normally train at 10,500, we're going to do the first 5 jumps at 10,500, and then we're going to go down to 8,000. We're going to change things up a bit. We're going to do a little bit of speed, or we're going to do more randoms. Or so for me, just by changing up the phases, and I don't do them in training camps, I do them almost also in days, it keeps the teams more motivated. And they wake up in the morning and they go, hey, half a day B-slot training, what's the coach going to give us next? We're doing exits, or we're doing speed. We go as fast as we can and we don't care about keys. So, and in that way, it makes it more interesting for them. Example, if you're a marathon runner, imagine how boring it is if you go and run a marathon every day, or you just get on the road and you run. But we all know that those top guys, they are doing interval training, they're doing stairs, they're doing stamina, they're doing power training. So that all keeps motivate. It should be motivational.
Thank you very much. Edwin and Fanny have a similar, both a similar question. Edwin asks, what's the difference between a good coach and a mediocre coach? And Fanny asks, do you have an inspiring person for developing yourself as a coach, and why?
I'm going to go with Fanny straight away. Inspiring persons, for me personally, I try and read as many of other coaches' books or whatever material I can get, be it golf pros, horse jumping coaches, soccer. You see many of the soccer coaches. Jurgen Klopp is a big favorite of mine, Pep Guardiola on Manchester City, just to see how they work. And I must be honest that I would go right now, that for me it would be a dream to sit next to somebody like Jurgen Klopp and watch him work with the team. So he, for me, would be my inspiration, because I think he's a person's coach, a people's coach, where he makes those people running on that soccer field will die for him, as we say in English. Not literally, but they'll get out there and they will run every ounce of energy they'll leave on that pitch and come off, even if they lose, and then he still walks out and he gives them a big hug. Win or lose, he has the same smile, the same atmosphere, the same attitude. To go to Edwin, the difference between a good coach and a mediocre coach, tough one. I've mentioned a lot of that stuff before, and so I don't want to go too much into it, but I would say a good coach leads the team, takes responsibility for the team's performance, and almost feels part of the team. I like to go, if I'm working with, let's call it a Dutch team or a US team, I don't try and segregate things. I feel when I'm working for those 3 days with that team from Holland, I feel that I'm a team member. And for me, that's what makes you a better coach than a mediocre coach that just comes in and says, well, here's the jumps for today. We put them on the board. This is how you creep them and off you go. It's more than that. It's not only about jumps, it's also about the big picture. We're almost a family together. And I can use as an example, and I don't want to always go into them, but with Hayabusa, for me, that we like a family. I know their mothers and their fathers, but sometimes I sit and I see myself as a father to them. And we all sit and we speak about it. And I must be honest, it's for me, I have a family right here on Texel, and I have a family in Belgium, and that's Hayabusa. Okay.
Yeah, thanks. 2 more questions from Rob. The first one, can you give some examples for team or individual goals? I think you might hint on them.
Yeah.
And the other one is, well, that's kind of an interesting question. Is it good to sometimes use another coach, or a better way to always use the same coach?
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's a good one. And an example of goals, it depends a little bit, but like, let's say if I take a junior team could come in and they could say long-term goals would be, we want to go to the NKP, the nationals, and we want to learn all the random formations. So that's the goal. And then on a short term, they'll say, well, let's pick up some exits as well. And as they're going better, especially if they go to the wind tunnel, you're going to be finding that, I'm sure, with some decent flying in the coaching, within the tunnel and some decent coaching, they're probably going to be doing 15 and 20 points in the wind tunnel. And that will very soon translate to free fall, where they'll make 10 or 12. And before you know it, those randoms are going to go, whoa, we've just done 18 without even thinking about it. So to me, that will go into the goals that you can set. If you're a more serious team, maybe into your second and third year, you could be going, well, we want to try and win the nationals. And that would become a longer term goal. Shorter term would be, we need to make sure we can do, so we want to make sure that we can at least have 80% of the blocks, as we say it, in the green zone. And to me, that's a good goal. And then as a case of random speed, we want to be able to do our randoms at this speed. We need to be able to average 25 to 30 on randoms. So those are all goals that obviously the coaches, you can get involved with them to help the teams, because often teams come to you and they just say, we want to make a 20 average. And I go, well, it's okay. It's a goal. It's a number. But remember, the draw is never the same. You know, if you look at the top teams in the world now, in Australia, they won on a 27.9, call it a 28 average. And then Hayabusa did a 29 in the US Nationals. But if they had to jump a meet right now, they might only do, with the old lineup, the same lineup as what they had, they might only do a 27. So the draw changes what you're going to score. So I don't like to go into what we were, an exact average to achieve. To go with, sorry, Rob, to go into the questions of use another coach, I think it's always good. I don't believe one coach is the be-all and end-all. Jurgen Klopp arrived in Liverpool, and they've had other coaches before, but he's the coach right now. And maybe in another year or two, he decides to move on and they get another coach. The same in our sport. If a coach fits you, I would say keep it. Like if you hire a coach and he is just the dream team with you and you go, wow, everything's going good, then I would say, why change him? Don't change him. But if you feel like, hey, it's going okay, but let's try somebody else. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think you'll pick up the best of both, and you try again. Remember, you are the employer. You are employing the coach. So take a coach for a year. I always go, for me, when I working with teams, it's a 1-year contract. You go in there for 1 year, you work, you give your team the best, hopefully the same, them to you. And then at the end, you evaluate it. And they might say, hey, well, let's go on for another year. Or they're going to say, no, you know what? Sorry, Gary, you stop here. We're moving on. We're using another coach. And that's fine. That's how it goes. That's our sport.
Thank you very much, Gary. That were the questions so far, talking about the points that you already talked about. Feel free to continue, please.
Yes. The next thing for me that we often get asked, and I mean, this one is also a little bit, how can I say, dependent on location, but what drop zone, which is the best drop zones to train at? And I'm lucky, I travel around a lot, so I don't have any bias to drop zones, and I don't want to mention names, but if I go back to the example of 100 jumps, if you're only going to do 100 jumps in a year, you can stay in Europe and do your jumps in Northern Europe. Whether you're a German team, a Dutch team, you can stay in your own country and you can make your jumps. But we all know that teams look around for costs, and we know that the Belgian drop zones are super cheap. Teams can get across to Belgium, and it hurts me a little bit that they do go there, but I fully understand it because it's a business. You're running a business as a team. But so teams will go and train wherever it's cheaper. But I will always say to the teams, make sure you contact the drop zone and find out and tell them that, tell them that you want to make 10 to 12 jumps a day. And what is the possibility of doing back-to-backs? So you're not disappointed when you arrive there and it's very, very cheap, but you find that it's very, very busy and you can only get on every second or third or fourth load, because then you're going to be very, very disappointed. So make sure you have in writing from them. And of course, we all know there's variables. They might come to you and say, hey man, very sorry about this, but the one pilot is sick and we've only got one plane running, or we've got 100 tandems showed up, so we have to get the tandems going. We all know that's important for drop zones. But if it happens too often, then you've chosen the wrong drop zone. So make sure you have jumps, make sure you have a commitment from the drop zone in your jumps per day. Tell them what you want. Weather risk, as much as I said it's good weather here on Texel in Europe, I mean in Holland, you also obviously have Teigen as well, which I think is also a great drop zone. But it would be silly to train in Holland in February, March. You're going to go up against the cold and you're going to go up against weather. April, May, I have to say in the last 2-3 years that I've been here has been brilliant. Maybe the hottest times of the year. So April, May, I would definitely say is trainable in Northern Europe. But then weather-wise, you could go down to Southern Europe. You could go down to Spain, Portugal. It's only location-wise, it's an overnight flight with regards to you can finish on Friday. You can finish your work on Friday, and you can get into a plane at Schiphol Airport, and 2 hours later you'll be in Portugal, or 2 or 3 hours later you're in Algarve, or you're in Spain. So you're not losing that more time, and that's where is the only negative for me. If you're doing a short camp, I would not go to the USA. If you're going to go a week, it's probably better to go down to Southern Europe. Otherwise, if you're going 2 weeks, then 10 days to 2 weeks, I would say go to the USA, go to Florida. It's closer, or of course Arizona, but then you're adding 3 hours of jet lag into yourself. So I'm a firm believer that in Europe, especially that the way that the weather's changing, you can definitely train inside Europe, and it can be North Europe, it can be Germany. It's the weather's good, and you get the jumps in here. Finally, on the drop zone, make sure you know what aircraft is available to you, because many times you would arrive on a drop zone and they have a Twin Otter, but the Twin Otter has been allocated to a free fly boogie or tandems, and then they put you out of not a Pilates porter, but a beach, and that thing's flying in so fast and you can't train out of it. So make sure you know what aircraft the drop zone has. And of course, if you jump in a world meet out of a left-hand door, try and train a left-hand door. So we all know in Holland, if you're going, for example, to the nationals in Holland, most of the time you're going to get a caravan, or pretty certain you're going to get a caravan. It would be silly to go and make the bulk of your jumps in Italy or France out of a Pilates porter, which is a right-hand door. If you're jumping out of a Twin Otter, it's okay. You can survive a caravan. They're pretty similar. That's it for me on the location, the drop zone. The big one for me that we get is tunnel. The tunnel has changed our sport. We all know it. We started many years ago with tunnel, and basically it was a learning tool. It was a training tool of how could you train your individual skills. We were training in Orlando in a little 10-12 foot tunnel. But as the sport has progressed, it's the tunnel sport has progressed. It's boomed. That we've even changed the name of our governing body of the IPC has become the ISC, because there have been countries when it was called the IPC, which was the International Parachute Commission, who said the tunnel has got nothing to do it. So they wouldn't has nothing. The tunnel has got no parachuting in it. So we will not encompass and take on any tunnel sports. And the US was one of it. A big country like the USA would not recognize the tunnel as a part of skydiving, as the USPA. So what happened at the top is they changed the IPC to the ISC, which is now called the International Skydiving Commission. And that now has encompassed, it's got two bodies where it's got the outdoor and the indoor. And the indoor, as we all know, has competitions. They've gone from having World Cups, they now have world meets. So that also becomes a big factor in the team as to, if I'm going to attend a world championship in the tunnel, of course you have to train for it. If I can give you an example of Hayabusa, they are now training hard for the outdoor world championship in Russia, the Mondial. So there's very little tunnel time allocated. Yes, they do tunnel and they will do some in the winter, but the big focus is jumping. So for the senior teams who have done a lot of tunnel time already, the tunnel is not that important. The jumping is important. And I kind of jumped one step ahead because I wanted to say, I had a question from someone just the other day saying to me, how much tunnel time should they allocate to their training? And I was going to go, if you're a junior team, you know, I'm talking 50 to 200 jumps each, and you get a team together, as we had in Holland, the rookie category, or the USA, the rookie category, 50% in the tunnel. Go to the tunnel, because you will soon find yourself flying around that tunnel feeling more comfortable. You can put rigs on. You don't need to be experienced to fly. As long as you can fly stable, you can put a rig on your back, 4 people or even 2, and you can fly with a rig on. It's going to make you so much stronger as an individual flyer, and also as a team. You're going to it's going to feel closer to free fall. And you'll find that all of a sudden in the tunnel with these junior teams, if I call them that they will get up to a 20 average in the tunnel. And that will, as I said earlier, will translate very quickly into free fall to a 10 or 12 average. Once they can exit, all of a sudden they'll be flying around. So I would say, if you're a junior team, tunnel as much as you can. You're gonna grow. You're gonna see the progression. As you become a little bit more experienced and you start to take on the blocks, you then need to start to go, we need to jump more. We need to see the exits. We've got so many more exits. And we also need to put all the blocks in free fall, because they don't in the tunnel. For me, it's way different. We have different techniques in the tunnel on at least 20-30% of the blocks with the top teams than what we do in free fall. We don't use the same technique. And we all know that the flying style is slightly different. So that's it for me on the tunnel. I don't know if you have more questions that you want to hit, Benny, or...
Yeah, we just had one question by Edwin. He asked, what contributes more to the performance? Is it money or talent?
If Edwin Salon, he means team performance or individual performance?
Edwin, could you... Team performance. Yeah, thanks.
Team performance. Of course, money is the big factor. With money, you can go a long way in our sport, because I'm a firm believer that we can all skydive. I look at myself and I don't think I'm a great talent, but if you are hardworking and you are dedicated, we can do the sport. I've looked at people in the tunnels, and if I go onto the free fly side of things, you go into the tunnel and with a team, and you watch these tunnel instructors. In the beginning, you look at them and you think, you can see that they're junior, and you go back 3 months later and they can do things that you can't believe. So it's not necessarily only talent. It's just a case of you need repetition. With repetition in our sport, especially jumping, comes money. So money is a big factor for sure. And if you want to achieve the top, yes, talent. You need to be talented. But I don't think you need to be... I still go back to Liverpool soccer team. A bit of a dream season for them. They won the British League, the Premier League, for the first time, I think, if ever, in so many years. But they're not the most talented people out there. They are not the Lionel Messis and the Frankie de Jongs. You know, these guys are just hard workers. They run out there, they work hard. So I think what's going to make to the top is hard work. So what contributes more to performance? Yes, money or talent. I would have to say money will get you there. Talent is important, but I think most people have talent at the top. There's people that I think are not that talented and they're still world champions. But then hard work. You're only going to make it with hard work, because there's too many people out there that can beat you. So
in the meantime, we got a question from Ron. Can you give some pointers on how to plan a tunnel session?
Yep. It depends what level, Ron. But let me go. Let's just say an average. If I say not a junior team, we generally, if we just go time, I don't like to fly longer than 15 minutes in one session. And in the beginning, we used to fly 30-minute sessions, but it's tiring. It's a lot of briefing beforehand, so everybody understands what's going on. And then when you come out, you have to then debrief all those 30 minutes. And sometimes a lot of mistakes have been made that you could have fixed in 15. So right now, especially at the top, we don't fly longer than 15-minute sessions. So what I would recommend is, if possible, if you wanted to fly an hour in the day, instead of breaking it up into 15 minutes, because that takes too long, 4 times 15-minute sessions, take 3 times 20 minutes. Can you fly for 20 minutes? And then in those 20 minutes, in the beginning, repeat your jumps. Go in there, fly it once, fly it super smooth, calm, see everything. And then when you get in the second time, see if you can push it a little bit faster. You're still working on technique, but it'll start to push the speed a little bit without even thinking that you're pushing speed. It's not a speed phase. So you use the first session as a very calm flying. You should feel that I'm not sweating. This is very easy. I can see everything. There's so many pointers that you can use in that first session. It's almost like a creeping session. You can almost stop and talk to somebody with hand signals and say, I need more leg. Feed me a little bit more leg so I can pick up the grips properly. And then when you come out, you watch it once on the TV, if possible. You get back in and you push the speed a little bit without going out of control, because it's not a speed phase. And then, sorry, I'm reading something at the same time. I mean, how to choose the draw we fly. I wouldn't get, I mean, the draw I would be going, obviously it's a coaching thing. If I was coaching you, I would be trying to work out which, what randoms we need to drill, or sorry, what blocks we were drilling. Like if there were some blocks that were troubling the team, we would do that more in a drill phase. So inside your 15 or 20 minutes of flying, you could have at least 3 or 4 or 5 sessions that are drill sessions where you are drilling your blocks. And then when you come out of those, you could then go, okay, and these are the blocks that we're very good at: block 6, block 7, block 9, block 15. Put them with 2 or 3 randoms and you go. So I don't do a draw. I don't put on a computer and do a draw. I make the jumps relative to what you need as a team. So if I can help you out with that one to finish it, is almost just go, take your problem areas like you would do in any business. If you're struggling with certain things, put that into a drill phase. And the things that you're confident with, help that grow your confidence, and fly them harder, fly them faster.
So we have, thanks, Gary. We have a
question. No worries.
Rick, what are the biggest changes you've seen in the sport over the past years, and what future changes do you expect?
Well, obviously the biggest change for me is the phenomenal talents that are coming out of in our sport. The tunnel, I think, has produced that, as well as obviously the coaches have made people better, in the sense that people understand the techniques. Everybody's getting better and better. So I think with that, the speed, the biggest changes I've seen is I've watched people, especially when I do a lot of tunnel watching, and I do a lot of outdoor watching where videos get sent to me, and I'm impressed at how fast people can fly. And then when I read the team information again, and I say, well, that guy's only got 200 jumps. And I look at it and I go, man, unbelievable. So for me, I think the speed of flying has become incredible. What changes do you expect for the future? Yeah, that's a tough one. I know what I would want is, I would kind of want the judging to be a little bit harder on some of the stuff, because as a coach, we kind of are a little bit lost into, do we push speed some more? Because some of the stuff that I watch, I think, whoa, that would never. I'm quite, let me put it this way. When I'm coaching a team, I try and highlight to them all the points where I think they're going to lose points. And I go, this one, the judges will never, this is going to be a bust. This is going to be a bust. But when you come to competition, you see a lot of those get through. So then you're never sure, should you be pushing faster or should you be pushing more? So I don't know what to expect. The tunnel, the dive pool has changed in the outdoor sport to kind of encompass the tunnel, which for me is a little bit of a, not a sore point, a little bit disappointing, because obviously when you're outdoors, you fly the big formations and you can fly cats behind each other and swing them around and do things. But because those don't fit in the tunnel, they've kind of made the tunnel, everything a little bit faster, a little bit smaller. And unfortunately, we've had to put that into our sport. And I don't know if I'm into the outdoor sport. And I'm not sure if I'm for or against it. But eventually, for me, I would have said in the past, I would say, let the outdoors keep their big formations and just change 1 or 2 formations for the tunnel. You know, it's almost going to become 2 different sports. So what changes do I expect for the future? I expect there to be 2 totally different branches into indoor champions, outdoor champions, indoor and outdoor, for sure.
Thanks, Gary. Question from Peter. How about competitions in your training program? As much as possible, or you think about the fact that a training day, you make more jumps than a competition day?
Yeah, that's tough in our sport. But Peter, first of all, good to see you, man. Very important. Do competitions, because we train so much and so often, and then we expect to do in competition as we're doing in training. And when we arrive at the competition, all of a sudden we go, it's not working out that well, and we're having a bad competition. And most of the time, then I'd say to the team, have you actually done a competition in training? You know, in Holland, it was always great because you could go to the Tomscat Trophy and do that as a competition, and then you could go to the NKP. So you had 2 competitions. But even in between that, I would say do a competition, you know, and even to help on the jumps, don't do a full draw. So, you know, do 3 jumps. So draw, make a draw, and then take jump 1, 2, and 3, and do that. And the next time you train and say, hey, you know what? Tomorrow we're starting with 3 competition jumps, 4, 5, 6, and 7, 8, 9. So eventually it will take you a little bit longer, but you'll get through your set. Don't worry about the scores, because the scores I think are irrelevant. It's more just that fact that you're mentally doing a competition. Because that's a big thing that changes. All of a sudden, when we go to a competition, we act so different. We get irritated with each other because there's pressure. We start to moan at each other because somebody's late. We've never worried before. And then you look at the soccer players. When those top soccer players walk out onto the pitch, they're not as nervous. Why? Because they play those games every single week. They play 3 big games. You know, so even when they're in the Champions League, they say, well, 2 weeks ago we played Champions League, or a week ago. So they've seen it enough. Yes, there's that little bit of nerves, but they still perform. And with us, it's a blow up sometimes.
Thanks, Gary. It makes sense, actually, thinking about it. So we have about a little over 10 minutes left. So, well, please continue.
Yeah, I'm running out here. So, no, that's good. In fact, I'm almost at the end of it. What I wanted to add, and this was the last thing that I had in here, I just wanted to remind everybody out there is fitness. We put so much money and time and effort, and we dedicate family time where we go into a drop zone and we're going to be jumping, and we spend so much time into the sport that anything you can do to add to your fitness level is going to make you better as an individual. And even if it's only 5% better, if each person does it, it's going to make your team that little 5% stronger. And 5% stronger in the sense that if you're fitter, you have more muscle strength, less muscle fatigue, healthy body, healthy mind. Mind is stronger. I don't get that tired sitting on the plane for 10 jumps. I can do 2 more jumps. There's more focus. So when the coach is saying something to me, or someone's actually trying to give me verbeteringspunt, to give me an improvement, then I can I can take that, accept that, and not be irritated with it. So try and some form of fitness. Cardiovascular for me is the best one. You don't need to go be pushing weights and become a muscle guy. Just do a little bit of cardiovascular, 20 minutes of running, and you'll be amazed at how this helps. It definitely keeps the fatigue factor away. And obviously for me, the biggest thing with team training is we start to get fatigue. And when you're tired, then we don't learn as much. We don't have that much fun. To add into the alcohol, I come from a team environment that we would always, and even with the top teams now, at the end of the day's jumping, it's quite regular that you go and you have one beer, you sit and you relax. I think it's good for the team spirit. You kind of relax. You can soap in things. Any problems that you've had with your teammates can be discussed. Most of the time they don't explode. If they do become an explosion, it's good that they've come out then. But one beer, relax yourself, but be careful that you don't drink too much. We've all gone through one of those that you wake up, you don't feel good. To me, it's a wasted day and disrespectful to your other teammates if you're not doing it together. So with alcohol comes sleep. We all know that on a sleep side of things, an adult should sleep an average of 7 to 9 hours a day. Now, we all think we don't need it, but if you go and you just Google sleep, you'll see that if they split your sleep up, you sleep in cycles, and you have deep sleep, which is very, very important, the first 3 hours of sleeping, and then you have in your last sleep cycle, you have your REM, your rapid eye movement, and in that you have your restoration. And I'm a firm believer of you process, and they will say to you that you process the information of the day in that sleep. And sometimes people would, and I've had it more in the tunnel, not in free fall, but I've had it in the tunnel where you're trying to get this individual to use their knee to make a turn or to use more leg input, and they're just not getting it. And then they go home, they come back the next day, in the first session, they've got it. And I'm a firm believer that it's that sleep, the REM, you process the information that you've learned, and you're actually learning in your sleep. But if you're drinking alcohol and you're not sleeping enough, you're throwing that away. So yes, it's for me, it's sometimes tough because people like to go and drink beers, and I do think it's important, socializing. But if you're trying to achieve more and more and you become more and more goal-driven, you've got to stay away from it.
Well, that's quite a bummer for me.
For me too. And the coach should not be drinking with you either.
So Edwin has a trick question. When you were able to make a dream team, would you be in it yourself?
No. I would like to be the coach. No, you know what, Edwin, for me, no. I don't rate myself as the most talented jumper out there. I do rate myself as one of the hardest workers around. And I do put myself in a category of a very good top team player. And I almost, in a sense, that's what I've gone into coaching. So it depends what you wanted in your dream team. But if you wanted talent and the best skydivers, I wouldn't even make your second team.
Edwin also asked who would be in it.
It depends when. But from the old days, for me, one of the top flyers out there, Jack Jeffries. Right now, Andy Gravel's, Dennis, I don't want to single out any of the Hayabusa guys. Nicholas Hemlin, superb jumper. So I have many, but it depends from what era you wanted. But Solly Williams, also extremely talented flyer. So, in fact, even one of my old teammates from South Africa that never made it anywhere by the South African team, Robbie Spencer, I always said he was the most naturally talented guy I've ever jumped with.
Right, thanks. Question from Rob. FS coaches have learned coaching themselves, well, most. Should there be an FS coaching training?
Yes. You know what? It's something that I've often thought about, and to be honest with you, I've been, be it too lazy or to try and put it together, that I would love to be involved, whether it's also with the KNVvL, the sports commission, to go, let's have a day where we sit down as coaches and try and structure something. I know there's a lot of information out there that I could provide, as well as maybe bring in another coach to try and get, because I think it's so important that the people that are coaching are giving the correct information across. And even if we have little workshops, I think that would be very, very beneficial. Just as they have on Teiga, where they have that rubber duck boogie and they have coaches, I was hoping to come and do a seminar there on something similar. But unfortunately, I was out of the country. I couldn't make that one, as far as I can remember. But that was a while back. But it's something that, yes, I've often asked myself, just as Rob Laidlaw did in Skydive University, he decided to go, hey, let me start coaching people to coach other people. So I think there is a market there. I'm not saying on a financial side, but definitely on a information side.
Thanks. Question from Edwin: what's the worst team behavior you ever observed, and how to counter it? And I would like to specify that from one of the teams that you were coaching, but maybe also from other teams that were in the same plane or at the same drop zone during a competition or whatsoever.
Yeah, well, the worst like team behavior, we had it, and it was unfortunately good friends of ours, but it was the French team when we were in Russia, and I can't remember the exact date, but they had completed, and it was actually a free flight team. Benny, you would know these guys, Fred and Vince, and it was Babylon. And they went out, and we were all in competition, and we were all staying in the same barracks. And they went out and they partied, which was fine. But when they came back at night, they woke everybody up and they created total chaos. It was, and I must be honest, I was not that affected by it. But they had to, from the French Federation, they had to make an official apology to everybody. And they were, and I think they had to go and do some form of stuff back in France. Otherwise, they would be kicked out of the French Federation. But yeah, so I don't really. I think it's important to remember that, especially that it was after their competition. But different teams go to competitions for different reasons. Some want to achieve their best, but they know they're not going to win a competition. So if people, for me, if a team decides to party and do whatever, then for me, no problem, as long as they don't interfere with your space of what you're doing. But yeah, I can't think of anything else, to be honest. I think especially at a world level, most teams are pretty well behaved, especially nowadays. You know, the people are way more professional than what they used to be.
So I think, well, maybe the last question, maybe we have some time after that for the really last question. That's Rick's question: what would Dutch FS need to grow from the bottom up, and how do we attract more rookie or single A teams?
From the bottom up, you need people. So, I mean, it's like anything into a business. If you want to make the business strong at the top, you need to be strong at the bottom. So, Dutch FS is I don't want to jump straight in here, but what I see on Texel is not enough. We need more, be it fun jumpers that become FS jumpers. And obviously the tunnel's a good way to make it grow, but you need to try and attract people, your newer jumpers, into the sport. And I mean, that's the old thing that's been going on forever. You know, that drop zones are trying to keep the AFF students, or there's in the old days, static liners, to become AFF students, and you need to keep them in the sport because you want the sport to grow. But for the FS, it should be exactly the same. We should be looking around on drop zones and looking for not necessarily talents, people. It doesn't matter who they are, and put those people, you know, into the tunnel, because that's the easiest way to do it. Try and put them into some form of selection squad where they don't feel that there's pressure to perform, but they're just in this group. And in that sense, I think people will start to grow, because in our sport's full of egos, and I'm not saying it in a bad way, but people always want to perform. And all of a sudden, if you go to a drop zone and you see a team together, you feel that you can't join that team. But meanwhile, it's a case of that team is looking for people to become a second team and a third team, but the message is not out there. So the US is also struggling, and I think all over the world. I don't think it's only Nederland, but one thing I can do, and I know that this might not have gone down the right way, but the Alex Egbrink project, even though things were not done correctly, and I know on the financial side things were not great, and I don't want to go in there, but he did create a lot of teams. He did create 3, teams that are going, and you guys are still going with it, which I think in that sense, fantastic. So yes, he had money, but what did he do? He made groups together, and I think that's what we need to do. And could I know the Sports Commission or the KNVvL doesn't have it, but drop zones have money, man. The drop zones can offer some form of sponsorship. There's no doubt. If I hear how much money is going through and all these tandems being done all over, and there's some things are not centers, they are clubs, there is money. There's no doubt.
Thanks, Gary. Well, looking at the clock, I think that was the last question. Thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
Luckily, we had a good connection today.
Yes.
we did a dry run yesterday, and we had a little trouble with it. It all worked out today. So
it was an absolute nightmare.
Thanks for all the viewers for watching and for your questions. I think a lot of interesting questions.
Yeah.
Going to switch to my view. I would like to remind everybody for next week, we have a similar about a webinar about the mental aspect of well, actually competing. It's not only skydiving with Marieke Bender. She did some coaching for World Cup and World Championship participants. So yeah, be sure to join that if you're interested. Gary, thanks again, and thanks again to everybody watching, and maybe see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Benny. Thank you, man.